Okay, spiral throwers, welcome back. Today we are reviewing another prep service, the first since our fun and exciting endeavor where we grabbed the ball from Game Ready Football Prep, I think. You can check the videos to see how that went. Not great, in my opinion, but maybe your experience will vary. I think on one of the prep videos or one of the review videos, a fella named Caleb from Grip and Rip Football left me a message, and him and I have since connected. And today I received a ball from him and his company, Grip and Rip Football Prep. We're going to talk about it. I think it's a really high quality product. And having spoken with him on the phone, I know a bit about his process, a bit about the organization, a bit about the Wilson partnership, and I'm going to use the thing in a game, actually 2 games on Saturday. I didn't tell him 2 games, but I have 2 games on Saturday. We'll talk a little bit about all that stuff as the video goes on. But first, let's review the website here. Grip and Rip. Like I said, Wilson partner. So Caleb explained to me that there's basically a process through which Wilson chooses their partners. They send out a few balls, you prep them, and Wilson decides which company they want to go with in terms of game prep. He won. The balls are $50 a piece. I think that's US dollars. I mean, it must be US dollars to get prepared, which includes mudding and what I would imagine is a proprietary process. I didn't ask him exactly what process he uses, but you can tell by the quality of the ball. There's mud involved and probably some conditioning and some other stuff that I won't get into, but I'll say he does a good job. And the ball I received was an F2000. I'm an F2000 enthusiast. I like the F2000 ball a lot. I think it's a really good silhouette. I think it's a really good set of panels. And I also like the full stripe. I'm a Canadian. I watch CFL, hold your tomatoes. That ball is easy to catch. I played receiver for a long time, as I mentioned. It's a very easy ball to catch, very easy ball to track. And that full stripe is not raised. It's just painted on. So you may like that or you may not like that, but you know, we're going to talk about all these things. First, I think I want to talk about the basics here. The ball shipped from Caleb in about 4 days, I think 3 or 4 days, which is pretty good. That's about right. Shouldn't take longer than that. You don't want stuff sitting around in trucks or whatever. When the ball arrived, the thing I really liked is that Caleb reached out to me on Instagram. So he was following up with the tracking, saw that it arrived today. I was busy today, but did pick it up when I got home. And he reached out. We spoke on the phone, actually, which is new for me. Again, sign of a good company, I think. So you don't have to do that, certainly, if you're doing preparation for a number of different teams and have a little business going. But he did. And we spoke a little bit about the ball, my first impressions, some of his process. I'm a sort of a mud convert here, as I have in my tag. But the more I deal with mud products and see break-in, the more I can appreciate why people do it. The softness of the leather really does make a difference in the feel. And I would guess also the longevity, but I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, it's hard to say. Even if I had started doing mudding a year ago, I still wouldn't know. I think a longevity sample should be at least a few seasons. And for me, I'm playing indoor, outdoor, but not contact. So that ball doesn't take a lot of punishment, just enough that it should be able to keep chugging along. The few things I want to talk about here before we get to the ball, okay? I'm going to show you something that Caleb sent with his ball. Hopefully this mic doesn't boom too much. This is a card that came with the ball that Caleb sent me. It might be mirrored, I hope not, but maintaining your football, okay? Stuff about when you get the ball, you should brush it to get the tack back out to where you like it. Stuff about applying conditioner, not playing in conditions that are too wet. And of course, another little nice bonus here, you can send your football back to the shop to be conditioned for a discounted rate. How about that? Like in Canada, I probably wouldn't do that because it's just too expensive to send and then pay duties again. Like you'd be into it. I think the duties on this were like $70. So you'd be into it for, let's call it 100 or so if you pay for the shipping as well. It's not cheap, but if you're busy or you have the means or you don't want to do it yourself or you're not confident doing it yourself, that's a pretty nice deal. You gotta appreciate stuff like that. And it's, pretty detailed in terms of the instructions, applying a nickel size amount of conditioner to each panel and rubbing it in, blah, blah, blah. Now, as I mentioned, I like the F2000. Let's talk a bit about the F2000s that I have already, the break-in that each one went through or didn't go through. And then I'll show you some mudding I did on the weekend, knowing that Caleb's ball was going to come this week. And we'll talk about his ball compared to these other ones and what I thought was a really good job by me to mud some of these products. But seeing a professional one, almost impossibly well done and very difficult to replicate. So this is the F2000 that I played with a few years ago. This has not been through any game prep. I brushed this, probably waxed it a handful of times, and basically just took it out on the field. And what you see here is basically a ball that's red still, purple still, changing color for sure. But even the laces are not really dinged up, right? Like this never saw any wax or any mud, nothing. It's never played with outside. So, you have this level of break-in, the dimpling still very high, I would say. It's fine. The ball feels good to throw. It's pretty soft. But again, this took probably 2 months of playing every weekend, sometimes twice in a weekend, to get to this level. This is still not fully broken in. Some people would hold this ball and say it's not fully broken in. Okay, that's ball number 1. F2000 number 2 was mudded by me. And this one was mudded with mud from my backyard. Hasn't been used in a game, never been played with, only brushed, mudded, waxed, and conditioned per, I think, the Gridiron game prep instructions on their website. Nothing crazy, but a bit of an involved process. Takes time, obviously. You let the mud sit. This was a ball that sat in mud for about 4 hours. You can make of that what you will. I think I should have left this longer in the mud, and I probably could have got a darker finish. I also used a rag to wipe some of the conditioner on in spots, and you can see that I rubbed away the mud. That's my fault. I'm inexperienced, as you guys know, when it comes to this mudding stuff, but the feel of the ball is pretty good. It's soft, if a little hard on the seams, but definitely feels better than the ball that I played with for a year. On the weekend, lots of preparation on this channel. On the weekend, I did a GST. This is the GST that I play with. We've talked about this ball before. This ball's never been through any mud, just wax, tack, and conditioner, and now, 5 or 6 games. I did one that I'm giving away to a friend of mine because his son wants a ball, and I mudded this one myself. This one sat in the mud for a day. I brushed it in by hand, like you're supposed to. I applied the conditioner by hand as opposed to using a rag, so none of the mud came off. And I have to tell you, this ball feels incredible and is very dark. This ball has been played with a little bit, but hasn't gone through any extravagant break-ins. Like I mentioned on the channel, this one went through like some shaving cream and stuff early on when I really had no idea what I was doing and just thought that I could do whatever and I would get a good result, but I didn't, obviously. So much so that I ended up buying a second GST, in fact. This ball now feels great. I would use this in a game, but I've promised it to a friend, so I'm not going to give it away. Let's take a look at the ball Caleb sent me. That is a broken in ball. Now, I don't have the ball that I got from Game Ready Prep, but this is very, very similar in color without being incredibly slick and having like tons of grease pushing around on the panels and all this other stuff. Like there's none of that here. This is like soft, but not slippery. We'll do the hold test here. I can squeeze it as hard as I can. I'm wearing a hoodie today, so you can't tell, but my hand is not slipping off. I like that quite a bit. And I'm always a fan of people who try and at least polish up the Wilson logos. Caleb has done that here. I just tried to do it on the GST. It's rather difficult, to be honest with you, but he's managed to do it. I would say that in a game, this would feel good, but not quite where I like it in terms of tackiness. Caleb did talk to me before he sent the ball, and he watched a few videos and said he added some tack. But as his card says, when you get the ball, brush it, brush it, and try and get the tack back. So for the first time on the channel, we are going to brush this together. It's never been brushed, at least not by me. And we're going to see how it feels. Now, Caleb said before he sent it, he does this with all his balls. He throws them around in the shop a little bit to see how they feel, and then he decides whether or not it's to his standard or not, and then he sends them out. So I'm going to get the brush. We're going to have a brush here, and then we're going to see how it feels. Right away, I'll tell you this is taking to the brush a lot better than the Vapor Elite did. Okay, let's see how you feel. Like I said, soft, but not so soft that your hands are slipping off of it. Laces, you can see the color in between, so it wasn't so obsessively done. Oh my gosh, I have a sore throat. It wasn't so obsessively done that all attack has been removed from the ball. And like I said before, what you don't see here is this like film being pushed around on the ball, but rather a pretty nice kind of shine, right? You still leave a fingerprint if you try, but what you don't see is that slickness that Mario's ball had. So I would say this is a pretty good product. And for the cost, you know, when you're paying something in the neighborhood of $50 for a ball to get prepped, plus the cost of the ball itself, this is really what you're looking for, right? Something that you can add tack to, take tack away if you want. You can add conditioner over time and soften it more. You can let it get a little hard on you if you want to, you know, not use conditioner. There's probably a better way to say that, but whatever, no big deal. Yeah, and so when you buy a ball and have it conditioned like this and have it prepped like this, what you're getting is a product that is colorized in a way that you might enjoy, that you might like, you might find aesthetically pleasing, and certainly one that people associate with a certain feel, but you also get the feel. Some of these ball breaking companies, I think, as I mentioned, they shoot for color before they shoot for feel and playability. And you just can't do that. It's not an option. You have to be able to play with it, right? The name of the company is Grip and Rip, not grip and keep working on it for some undefined amount of time and then rip. You know, you can't on one hand say that you're a company that gets stuff game ready, and then when you get the ball, it's not game ready. I don't think that's a fair description or a fair assessment of what a ball should be. And this one, I think, meets the standard. So I would say this is a buy for me. It's a recommend. And I'll mention that Caleb fronted me the ball. He doesn't know if he didn't know when he sent it to me if I would keep it or send it back. But I'm going to keep it. I'm going to pay for it and keep it and probably use it going forward. I think this is a really good ball, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it breaks in even more, because the break-in process, let's face it, it's still synthetic at the end of the day. The more you play with the ball, the more you will break it in, the more it'll feel good, the more it'll feel like it's your own. And that's really what the whole process is about. Part of it is, the enjoyment of breaking in a ball, but the other part is, okay, now it's ready for you to put your mark on it. And I think that ball is exactly where you want it to be in order to start doing that. So I'm looking forward to it. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat. And as a second part of this interview, second part of this video, Caleb actually offered to come on and do a short interview about his process. So we're going to do that, and we're going to cut to that right now. Okay, for the first time on the channel and the second time we're attempting this, I'm joined by another person. Caleb Walton owns Grip and Rip Football Prep. Just sent me a ball, a fantastic product. Caleb, thanks for joining me. What's going on?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited about this.
That's great, man. So, okay, first of all, tell people why you're doing this, how you got started. This is a labor of love, to say the least. I joked with you on the first attempt that you must be addicted to this to really get into it. And so I'm sure you are, but give people a little bit of the background to Grip and Rip.
Yeah, no, that's a great question to start with. So I'm a quarterback. I coach quarterbacks now, but my whole life growing up, I was a quarterback, and I really love everything about it. The mentality about it, the technique, mechanics, how to go into it, about being it mentally. So I'm a real QV savvy guy, and I started playing football in 7th grade, and I was luckily enough to continue to play in college and play a little bit after college with some arena ball. So I always associated a good football with its color, right? So back in the day when we were in high school and coach gives you a brand new football to use on game day, you'd quickly go over to the kicker bag and get one of the ones that looked worn, right? So I did this throughout, high school, and then sophomore year of college. I had a family member reach out to me who works in the equipment room in the NFL, and he kind of showed me some things, and right from there, I just knew that this was a legitimate thing. I'm not saying that a prepped ball improves your performance with the stats I'm about to give you, but through 7 games, I averaged around 206 to 210 yards per game. The last 4 seasons, I finished with around 300 average yards per game. So that was my sophomore year, and ever since then, I've kind of dabbled in it. When I graduated from college, I just did it selectively for the high school that I coach and teach at. And just about 3 years ago. I picked it up as a side hustle that's quickly turned into a pretty good side business.
Yeah, I mean it's a kind of it's a fun little business to run, I'm sure, for a couple of reasons. One, you have an excuse built in to get away from your wife and kids. It's dirty, it stinks, and so you can't do it in the living room. Sorry, babe, I got some balls to prep. I'm not going to be in the living room watching, Love is Blind with you tonight. Beautiful. Hard to find a side gig like that, I'll tell you. And then the other reason I think it's fun is because you do, speaking just about like the interactions we had when we first touched base, you kind of get a feel for what people want before you send the ball, and then you get to work a little bit of magic on each ball. Do I have that right?
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think qualities of someone who knows what they're doing prepping, the focus is feel. Feel is the only thing that matters. Feel in the right conditions, feel for your perspective with the football in your hand. Color is just a byproduct that happens with a solid formula and consistency. So if you don't focus on feel, whether your quarterback likes a leathery finish or a tacky finish, I think you're really missing the entire purpose of why prepping a football.
So let's talk about the one that you did for me here. This is the F2000. I've since purchased this ball from you. This is a really nice product. I have to admit, when I took it out of the bag, I think I told you this already. The first thing I thought was, not good. This is the same color as the ball I just got. It's too dark. It's going to be too slick, but it wasn't. And actually, like, even just it being out of the bag for a few days, plus a little bit of brushing here and there, it really is like as tacky as one of the other balls that I have that has no mud, like it's really a quality product. So you get the softness and the color and the tack after the brush, all stuff that you told me would be the case when the ball arrived. So talk to me a bit about your process here. I'll just mention to people that, when you look at the seams of this ball, it's hard to see in the light here, but you can see that the color of the original leather is still in there. You can see it around the laces, like I mentioned in the video. And I think that's a sign that you're not so obsessed about the color, but rather care more about the feel, as you mentioned. Tell me a bit about your process. I mean, don't give away any trade secrets. I don't want any whistleblowers to come for you or anything, but I'd be curious, like what can you tell me about what you did to this ball?
Yeah. Sorry, Joey, that you maybe have some trust issues with some preppers. Um, in my conversations with you, I just, I really wanted you were honest, which I think that's what people want. This is a pretty big investment for a family that is looking to get this done, or a football program that's looking to get some footballs done in bulk. So it's definitely an investment, and you want to make sure that it's worth its price. Um, and in the beginning, when I created pricing, I looked at how much materials cost to do it, and then I figured how much time it takes me to do it, and that's where my pricing is put at. I haven't moved that in 3 years, even though some products have costed more. I think that's a pretty good price for what you're getting. But yeah, I think what you're going to see in a formula, right, is whenever I prep for someone, I have my base prep that I have grown to manipulate that I love. If I was prepping for myself, it would be this formula, right? But not everyone has maybe the feel, or not everyone has the taste that I have and what a ball feels like. So I think my first starting point is, after we get through all the logistics of timeline and when you need this back by, and how many you're sending, is what are you looking for in a finished feel? And through that conversation, you really get to know, like, are they do they have an advanced knowledge of what type of prep they wish to have, or do they just chase a feeling? And then through those conversations, I'm really able to build a prep backwards. So start with what you want, and then build it backwards, and then and do it that way. Um, I'm definitely not going to go into some nitty gritty processes and formulas that I use, but there are how to videos I have on my socials, for one of the most common footballs used here in America, the Wilson GST with the tan leather, black laces, and white stripes. But really, what you'll see with my prep is it's multiple. It's dynamic, and I focus on feel. I focus on conditions you're playing in, and then terrain as well.
So I want to mention that I hope I'm not giving up any secrets about the interaction we had, but when we spoke, you sort of asked me what I like in a ball, and I told you some stuff about like the ball I was using. I was using a GST, the laces and whatnot, and I kind of like the unfinished, but not so much that I'd be willing to switch to a Duke, et cetera, and attack and whatnot. And my preferences, as you mentioned, given that it's kind of a quicker game in the league I play in, there's not a lot of time to get your hands on the ball. And I'll say that you mentioned to me that this F2000 was prepared already. You said you just finished preparing one and you added tack to it. So to my point that I made in the video, there's a reasonable expectation for a guy who receives a ball to be able to take it out of the bag, brush it a bit to get off whatever shipping issues or plastic, rub, wear and tear, whatever, which is pretty standard. Like any ball will have that. Even the ones I've received from Big Game and whatnot always have like a little bit of film or something on it. But you brush it a bit and then the ball is ready to throw. And you can add tack, you can make it softer, you can, do whatever to it, but the ball is ready for you to play with right away. So that's your base process, the one you did for this ball. Do I have that right?
Yeah. So as you said in your previous video, the F2000 Canadian footballs, as a quarterback, I love it. It's instant feedback on how well I'm spinning it. And there's nothing like when you're spinning it and the ball looks like it's levitating and it's floating and there's no wobble. It's what we all want, right? So I had just purchased it because, I have a couple CFL balls and I'm familiar with the leather that the F2000 has, but I never had my hands on it. So I had bought it back in November and it kind of sat in the shop because November and December and January are pretty busy months. But I had recently prepped it towards the end of February and it was just sitting on a shelf in my shop. And then when I saw your Nike Elite video, I was just like, dude, I want to see where my ball prep stands compared to others. Right. And I put myself in a vulnerable position to really put the money where the mouth is. Right. And here we are, after a few days of you getting it, you're all in, you're keeping this ball, you're paying for it. And I think that just speaks volumes on the type of product that comes out of my shop. I know I spoke to you, like every single ball that gets shipped out of my shop gets a couple throws to make sure that before I put it in that bag, before I tape up that box, before I put that label on it, like this is my name that's like being associated with this feel. And whether it's one ball out of 300 that I do for the NFL, or this is the one ball that this one kid's going to use all year round, every single ball matters for me. And I just put myself in the shoes of if I were the quarterback getting this football, what would I want?
Yeah, I think that it comes through in the work, Caleb, honestly. I continue to be impressed with the ball when I pick it up. Like you mentioned, I have a few here that I've done myself, played with, including F2000s. And this one, yeah, I mean, it easily takes the cake. Now, mind you, it ought to, because you're the pro, right? I'm just the guy with a brush and a tack bar. And you don't want to know how many times I've thrown shaving cream at balls that were not hanging between my legs in the last, year or so, trying to soften up a ball. Hasn't been great. I haven't had a lot of success. I'm getting better, but nothing close to this. So I got a couple more questions, then we'll get you out of here. My least favorite part about doing balls like this is trying to keep the laces clean and polishing the logos. Now, you've obviously tried to do both. I think this is pretty good. I cannot do it better than this on the F2000. I've tried a few times. I cannot do better than this. What are you using to clean the logos? Are you a Q-tip guy? Do you have some proprietary tool over there? Like how are you doing this without ruining the mud?
I get a lot of questions about that, right? So one thing about, hey, what's your finish feel? What are you looking at? Some guys are really specific on, I need the white stripes. I need them to be white.
These are
Right?
like,
Like,
oh yeah, this is like it's like a white strips commercial on this thing. And this is like really nice.
yeah, so I prefer that as well. The ball is already dark here in America, here in our hometown. We play night games. The laces are already black, so you need something to pop. So I'm a big believer in keeping the lines crispy. Um, so what I do, I just use blue painter's tape and I tape them over. I've gotten pretty detailed and getting a width that really matches that stripe, and that tape stays on until the ball is just about out. Then
You painters tape these? You didn't clean? Yeah, I mean, you might have cleaned them after, but there's like no evidence that these have been painters taped.
Yes.
There's not a single mark on the fringe of those stripes. Like that's an exact measurement on that tape.
Yeah, so I'm pretty detailed with it. A little bit of an obsession. Some people call it a problem. I call it a solution. So I use painter's tape, and then when I'm finished with it, I have a couple different ways depending on how large the surface area is. Like with a stripe, it's easy to just take a little bit of a disinfectant towel and wrap it on the end of your finger and just
Mm.
ever so slightly wipe it off. There's other times where like very minuscule logos have very small lines. I'll take a Q-tip. And then to clean the laces, that's another thing I'm very aware of, like especially with the Wilson ACL lacing. The black laces, they can wear and tear, and you'll never see that wear and tear. With the white ACL lacings, that's something I'm very, very conscious of trying to keep them crispy. So with those, I use a toothbrush and a little bit of warm water, and it's really not that advanced. It's not that crazy, but I just am delicate. I'm specific in the movements, and I try to clean it up. And the same thing with those logos, like on the one ball, on the one side of that F2000 has the U Sports logo on it. Again, like I mud over that, I condition over that, I brush over that, and then just at the end, I use a little toothbrush, a little Lysol wipe, and it cleans up pretty nicely.
Lysol wipe. Yeah, I never would have guessed that. Okay, so two more questions. Maybe we'll start with this. What is the thing you would tell somebody looking to buy a ball from you and worried about stuff like conditions? Here in Canada, we have a wet-ish summer for the first little bit in the back half as well. A lot of us who play in outdoor leagues are starting in April, finishing in September, October. And it's cold all year, so the leather dries out pretty quickly. What would you tell us about maintaining a ball that you do, whether it's an F2000, a Duke, any of the majors? How does someone keep something like this in pristine condition if they're playing with it every week or every couple of days?
Yeah, of course. I think when you look at the ball prep, right, like I've done 98% of the work. That last 2% of the work is just maintenance. So included in every single shipment, you get a how to maintain the leather. I list in order, like first thing you want to do, no matter what you do, is use that brush. If the brush doesn't fix your issues, there's a couple different routes and avenues you can take. If the ball feels dry, add a small drop of conditioner on it, let it dry, brush it in. If the ball is not feeling as tacky as it is anymore, I'm assuming it's either been used a lot or maybe used in some rainy or wet conditions. Then I would recommend brushing, conditioning. If it doesn't meet your needs there, then maybe adding your preferred type of tack. There's a lot of different type of tack methods out there. There's multiple tack bars. There's a tack spray. So whatever you feel that you like best, I would go in that route. Um, so when you're getting back to that original question, what would you expect? I think it's understanding that there's going to be a little bit of maintenance work included if you want this ball to last and have the longevity that a prep can give a football. You know, Prep for an NFL team this past year, they played in a monsoon. It looked like on TV, and there's just, at that level, they can bite the bullet and just understand that, hey, these footballs are no longer QB gamers. They're going to be moved to a practice ball. Might be moved to a specialty ball, and they're going to be kicked and punted. But what happened is the prep withstood those harmful conditions in that moment and got them through competing and performing in that game.
Huge. Yeah, it's definitely a big deal. Last question for our friends at Wilson. They've been going through a number of different designs recently, whether it's the Prime, the GST, the Omega. I know they have some other stuff cooking we won't talk about on the air that I think is going to excite a lot of people the next year or two. What advice would you give to like a manufacturer, whether it's Wilson, Nike, in terms of making a ball easier to break in, whether it's for you or for a kid who's trying to do it himself? What are they doing well and what are they missing the mark on in your view?
Well, I think you saw it with the two different preps, with the two different prep companies. Each type of leather should receive its own formula. And if that's the first time people are hearing it, I hate to be hate to be that guy to break the news, but even with Wilson's multiple leathers, each leather is slightly different. They're treated slightly different, so you need to prep them slightly different, right? I'm a huge believer in Wilson. I'm partnered with them, and before I was partnered with them, I believe that they made the best football on the market for all
I think
different
you're right.
levels.
Yeah.
There's a reason that the two longest lasting professional sports league have always thrown a Wilson. You know what I mean? For at least the last, you know, larger part of the years they've existed, right?
Yeah.
Wilson will always be a Duke, and the Duke will always be a Wilson, and then the CFL ball will, in my eyes, will always be a Wilson football. So I think that to give them, and that's what I really enjoy about this partnership, right? Is I'm not just a prep company. Okay. They're getting Caleb Walton, who played the sport for many years, who coaches the sport now, who has a ton of knowledge on footballs, how it performs, how it feels in the hand, how it feels when you throw it. I love that part of the relationship where I can give them some insights on this, that, and the other, and just see their guys just run with these ideas, and they throw 100 different ideas on a wall and see if one sticks, and then they run with those great ideas, and whether it comes to market, that's up to them. But I really think that Wilson has done an incredible job innovating the game and adding new things with their QBX system. They have a chip in the ball that measures a ton of measurables to see this last NFL Shrine Bowl, right? The quarterbacks, in that game, Kyle McCord played in that game. They were able to see his velocity on the ball, spiral efficiency.
Yeah.
So those things are measurables that, back in the day, a scout would be like, wow, the ball really flies off his hand. But no, now you have actual metrics to see that. So a tip to manufacturers like Wilson is just to continue to innovate the game. Just like, you called me a professional in prep service. I appreciate that compliment, but I'm here. I'm trying new things. I'm throwing a lot of things at the wall and seeing if things stick and seeing if things can improve. I think it's a quality that I'm very happy that I possess, or intimately or intentionally just try to not act like I have it all figured out, and just understand that that's how you grow as a person, as a small business, as a big manufacturer like Wilson is.
Totally. I totally agree with that. Wilson's, they're the big manufacturer on the block. They take a lot of shit, and I think have responded in kind and done a great deal of good for people like me, like you, like whoever who have problems. I don't see Nike or Adidas putting out break-in videos for their balls on YouTube. It's quite the opposite, actually. It's like radio silence, even though they're selling their balls for more money in a lot of cases than Wilson does. So maybe a lesson learned there. Caleb, thanks, man. Tell people where they can find out more about Grip and Rip. If they want to buy a ball, they want to check your socials. Floor's all yours, buddy.
Yeah. Listen, you saw my genuine character through this video, and in me opening up this vulnerable situation with Joey and sending him a ball cold turkey and seeing what he likes. You see that he bought the ball. You see that he's going to use it in his competition,
I
right?
made a sack by the ball. Yeah.
He's quickly turned into a anti-mudder to a I love mud. He's going to get it on a shirt, put it on a sticker. He's going to throw it on his car. Uh, but you can find me. I primarily use Instagram. It's Grip and Rip Football Prep. Instagram's really the social media that I enjoy using. I am on Twitter or X, whatever you call it. And I have someone that runs TikTok for me. It's not an app that I own. It's not an app that I really care to use, but I have someone running my socials for TikTok, and then you have my website. I enjoy talking shop, but at the end of the day, this is something that puts food on my family's table. So there always will be, just some things that I keep to myself. But I've helped many, many, many kids, high school, college, and players that need ball prep and need advice that can't afford it. So
Incredible. Thanks for watching, listening, everybody. We'll see you in the next video.